The first time I realized everything I ever knew was a lie, I was standing by the front door with a set of keys in my hand, listening to my wife giggle on the phone. Not laugh. Giggle. The kind of sound you make when you're flirting, when you feel wanted, when you forget the man who built your whole damn future is standing right there, invisible. Her name was Jessica, and once, I thought the world bent at the curve of her smile. Now, I only saw a fraud with cherry lip gloss and a suitcase packed behind her calves. 7 years. 7 brutal years. Working double shifts. Missing birthdays. Living on takeout and gas station coffee so Jessica could finish school. And now? Now she was slipping on a tight black dress and whispering into her iPhone like a damn teenager. I caught a few words before she turned away. Tonight's the night, baby. I'm finally free. Free. Free from me, apparently. I didn't say a word. I set the keys down on the counter, next to the papers she had so thoughtfully left out for me. Divorce papers with a pink sticky note that read, "Please sign these when you have a minute." Red heart. Classy. I should have been furious. I should have ripped the papers in half and dragged her sorry out the front door. But I just stood there, staring at the woman I once swore to love, realizing she never even saw me standing in her way. She only saw herself climbing over me. "You're not mad?" Jessica asked when she finally noticed me, looking almost bored, like we were discussing what kind of milk to buy. "No," I said. It came out so even, so flat, I didn't recognize my own voice. I signed the papers right there. No fight. No begging. No bargaining. Just a cold, mechanical sweep of ink. Jessica smiled, a cruel, smug little thing, and grabbed her purse. "You're doing the right thing, Mike," she chirped as she slipped her heels on. "You'll find someone else. Someone. Simple. Simple. Simple like an idiot," she meant. She laughed again as she walked out, dragging her suitcase down the driveway. And me? I packed my life into my truck that same night and drove away from everything we built, everything I bled for, without even locking the door behind me. I vanished. No goodbye. No forwarding address. No social media. Gone. Jessica didn't even bother to chase me. Why would she? Her degree was framed and hanging on the wall already. Her future was waiting, arms wide open, and it sure as hell didn't have my name on it. I heard she married her study buddy 3 months later. A real piece of work named Tyler, some soft-handed finance guy who probably never changed his own oil in his life. Good for her. I rebuilt myself from scratch. New town. New name. Burned the past like a funeral pyre and watched the smoke carry every memory of her away. Until 20 years later. It was a Thursday when my old number, the one I kept hidden even from myself, started buzzing like a hornet trapped in a jar. At first, I ignored it. Work was busy, and besides, nobody from that old life even remembered me. Or so I thought. By midnight, my phone showed 199 missed calls. All from the same number. No voicemails. No texts. Just endless, desperate ringing. I sat there in the dark, phone glowing in my hand, heart pounding like a war drum. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to open that coffin I'd nailed shut with my own bare hands. But curiosity? Curiosity is a cruel thing. And sometimes, it's stronger than hate. I took a breath, stared at the screen like it was some cursed artifact from a life I should have burned deeper, and finally, I answered. The voice on the other end of the line? It was Jessica. And she was crying. At first, I didn't even recognize her voice. It was raw, broken. Nothing like the confident, smug Jessica I left standing in the driveway 2 decades ago. "Mike," she sobbed into the receiver. "Mike, please. I need you." I didn't say a word. Let her squirm. Let her taste a fraction of what she shoved down my throat all those years ago. "I made a mistake," she gasped between ugly hiccuping breaths. "I should never have. I mean, you were the only one who ever." I hung up. There wasn't a damn thing left for me to hear. But of course, it didn't stop there. The next day, she showed up. At my doorstep. In the rain. Jessica looked nothing like the woman who had laughed at me as I drove away. She was thinner. Older. Eyes hollowed out like someone had stolen the fire from her. And when I opened the door, she dropped to her knees right there in the mud like some pathetic movie scene. "Mike," she cried, clutching at the cuff of my jeans, "please, just listen. I don't have anywhere else to go." I should have slammed the door. But instead, I stood there, paralyzed by a strange mix of satisfaction and disgust. "Get up," I muttered. "You're embarrassing yourself." She scrambled to her feet, wiping mascara-streaked tears across the back of her hand. Her hair was a mess, her clothes soaked through. And still, part of her tried to flash that fake smile she always used when she wanted something. I know I don't deserve it, Jessica said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. But just hear me out. Please. Against every ounce of reason, I stepped aside. Let her in. I told myself it was for closure. Maybe deep down, it was curiosity again, that same twisted sickness that made me answer the phone the first time. Jessica stood dripping water onto my hardwood floor, looking around like she was trying to piece together my life from the bare walls and worn furniture. You did good for yourself, she said softly, almost in awe. I did better without you. I shot back without missing a beat. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Good. That was the appetizer. The main course was still coming. Jessica paced like a trapped animal. Her hands fluttered uselessly at her sides, then finally clenched into fists. Tyler left me, she blurted out. I raised an eyebrow. And here I thought finance guys were supposed to be stable. Ran off with his secretary. Left me with nothing. Nothing, she said, voice rising. No money, no house, not even a damn car. So you thought you'd crawl back to me, I said coolly. Her eyes flashed with the same ugly fire I remembered from the night she left me. The real Jessica peeking out from under all that fake vulnerability. You owe me, she snapped. And there it was. The real reason she was here. Not love. Not regret. Not redemption. Just need. Greedy, desperate, bottomless need. I owe you. I repeated, my voice low and dangerous. I gave you the best years of my life, she screamed. I put up with your boring for 7 damn years while you slaved away like some peasant. I laughed. Actually laughed. A hard, bitter sound that bounced off the walls. You mean the 7 years where I worked 2 jobs to put you through college? Those years. Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I stepped closer. Close enough to see the panic starting to bubble behind her eyes. You graduated, I said, voice cold as ice, and you filed for divorce the same week. You laughed when I drove away. You thought you were trading up. You thought you could do better. Jessica's face crumpled, her bottom lip trembling like a child who just realized the candy store was closed for good. I was stupid, she whispered. I didn't know what I had. You knew exactly what you had, I said, slamming the door behind her so hard the pictures rattled on the walls. You just didn't give a damn. Jessica staggered backward, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she choked. I'll do anything you want. I stared at her. 20 years. 20 godforsaken years. And here she was, the same selfish little girl inside an aging woman's skin. There was a part of me, deep down, that wanted to take her back just to break her twice as hard. But the man standing in front of her now wasn't the boy she betrayed. He was sharper. Colder. Done. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her. I needed peace. And that's exactly what she wasn't. I left her standing in the middle of my living room, dripping water and desperation onto the floor. I didn't offer a towel. I didn't offer kindness. She hadn't earned either. Jessica clutched at her soaked purse like it was a life raft, like she could somehow fish herself out of the wreckage she'd created with just enough sweet words. You're not even going to listen, she whimpered. I already did, I said, walking past her to the kitchen. I needed something to keep my hands busy before I did something I'd regret. You screwed up. You lost. Not my problem. You think you're so perfect, she snapped suddenly, her voice sharp enough to cut bone. You think you're better than me just because you didn't fail. I turned around slowly, meeting her eyes. They were wild now, red, bloodshot, broken. No, I said quietly. I'm better because I didn't burn the only person who ever truly gave a damn about me. Jessica flinched again, backing into the wall like she was about to get hit. Funny, considering the only one who had ever done any real damage in this house was her. You don't understand, she spat, trying to salvage whatever scraps of pride she had left. Tyler said he would take care of me. He said he loved me. Yeah, I said, pouring a whiskey. How's that working out for you now? Jessica's face twisted into something truly ugly then, a sneer, a scowl, a flash of the venom that had been dripping from her soul long before she even knew it herself. You're pathetic, she hissed. Still living in this dump. Still a loser. I took a slow sip of whiskey, feeling the burn slide down my throat. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. She was trying to provoke me. Trying to drag me down into the mud with her because that's where she lived now, in the filth of her own choices. You can find your way out, I said, setting the glass down hard enough to make her jump. I have nowhere to go, she shouted, voice cracking. You can't just throw me out like trash. That's rich, I laughed, cold and hollow. considering you tossed me aside for a finance bro with a six-pack. Tears welled up again. Real ones this time. But I didn't move. I didn't comfort her. I just watched her unravel, piece by pathetic piece. You don't understand what it was like, she whispered. Everyone expected me to have it all. I had to make it work. I couldn't just stay stuck with you. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. So you found someone else to climb, I said. And when he kicked you off the ladder, you thought you'd come back here, to the man you stepped on. Jessica's lip trembled. I was scared. Scared of what? I snapped. Of not being adored enough? Of not getting your way every damn time. She sobbed into her hands, crumpling like a house of cards. I thought I was doing the right thing, she muttered through her fingers. I thought Tyler would give me the life I deserved. The life you deserved, I repeated, rolling the words over my tongue like poison. And what exactly did you think you deserved? Jess? A palace? A trophy husband? A life where you didn't have to do a damn thing but show up and smile pretty. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The silence between us grew heavy, suffocating. Finally, she looked up at me, makeup smeared, eyes bloodshot. I can be better, she whispered. I can make it right. I swear. I stared at her, long and hard. And for a brief, terrible moment, I remembered the girl she used to be before the lies, before the betrayal, before ambition swallowed her whole. But that girl was dead. She'd killed her. And now she was standing here, asking me to resurrect something long rotted away. No, I said simply. Jessica's mouth opened like she was about to argue, like she could bargain her way back into my life with the same lies she used to destroy it. But I was already walking to the door. You need to leave, I said without turning around. Now. The words hung in the air, final and merciless. She staggered forward like she didn't believe it, like she thought she could cry hard enough or beg loud enough to undo everything. Mike, please, she wailed. I don't have anyone else. I opened the door. The rain had slowed, just a steady cold drizzle now. Perfect weather for someone who didn't deserve shelter. That's not my problem, I said. Jessica stared at me, her chest heaving, her hair plastered to her face. I loved you, she lied one last time, her voice small and pitiful. No, I said, dead in the eyes. You loved what I could give you. You never loved me. And with that, I stepped aside, waiting. Jessica hesitated, searching my face for any crack, any weakness, any tiny flicker of the fool she used to manipulate. There wasn't one. Finally, broken and defeated, she stumbled out into the rain. I shut the door behind her without a second thought. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt free. I leaned against the door after it slammed shut, listening to the emptiness. The kind of silence that feels like it's alive, crawling over your skin. Jessica was gone, but she had left fingerprints all over the air, smears of old memories I didn't want to touch anymore. I should have been celebrating. I should have felt powerful, triumphant even. But instead, I felt tired. Bone-deep tired. Like I'd spent 20 years outrunning a ghost only to find it standing right in my living room, begging to be saved. I poured another whiskey. This time I didn't sip. I downed it in one savage swallow and slammed the glass onto the counter so hard it cracked. I didn't even flinch. The truth was, Jessica's betrayal had never really left me. It lived under my skin, in the way I flinched at kindness, in the way I second-guessed every smile, every good thing that crossed my path. It sat heavy in my gut, whispering that nothing good lasted, that trust was a fool's gamble. She didn't just leave me. She carved out a part of me and took it with her. I thought I had buried it. I thought building a new life had healed it. But tonight proved the wound was still bleeding, still aching in places I didn't even know could hurt anymore. The rain outside hammered harder against the windows, like fists demanding to be let in. I welcomed the sound. Better that than the silence. I wandered through the house, lights off, drink in hand, letting the past crash over me like a tide. The late nights, the broken promises, the slow, suffocating realization that love, real love, wasn't enough for her. She needed more. Always more. I remembered the night she graduated, how proud I was, how I stood there in the crowd, clapping like an idiot, thinking we had finally made it, thinking it was our moment. But she wasn't looking for me when she threw her cap in the air. She was already looking past me, at the life she thought she deserved. At Tyler. At freedom. 7 years of sacrifices, mine, always mine, and the first thing she did with her shiny new degree was file for divorce. She didn't cry. She didn't hesitate. She laughed when I signed the papers, laughed when I loaded the last of my things into the truck. I can still see her, standing in the doorway, arms crossed, smirking like she was winning some prize she thought she'd earned. And maybe she did win for a while. She got her fancy house, her perfect husband, her dream, until it all turned to ash. I sat down hard on the old leather couch, letting the exhaustion swallow me whole. Why now? Why, after 20 years, did she come back? Not because she missed me. Not because she realized she loved me. No, because she needed something. Just like always. Jessica was a black hole. No matter how much you gave her, love, time, loyalty, it was never enough. She devoured it all and still ended up empty. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. Anger needed energy, and she didn't deserve any more of mine. What I felt was colder, cleaner, indifference. Jessica was just another lesson written in scars instead of ink. A brutal reminder of a time when I thought love was enough to save someone who didn't want to be saved. I leaned back, letting my head fall against the couch, staring at the ceiling until the whiskey dulled everything into a distant hum. She was gone. For real this time. And I wasn't going to chase her ghost anymore. The only thing ahead of me now was peace, if I was man enough to claim it. And for the first time in 2 decades, I realized something simple and terrible and true. I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought she was. And that woman? She never existed. The whiskey worked fast, blurring the sharper edges of my mind, but it didn't wipe the memories clean. Nothing ever really did. I stared into the dark until the clock on the wall ticked its way toward morning, each second slicing deeper than the last. I should have been making decisions. I should have been moving forward, planning my next step, figuring out what to do with the fact that Jessica had found me. Instead, I sat there like a statue, trapped between 2 decades of rage and the suffocating weight of not giving a damn anymore. Maybe she thought showing up would open some door. Maybe she thought I'd fall into old habits, pull her back into my life like some broken piece of furniture I couldn't bring myself to throw away. She didn't realize the man she left behind didn't exist anymore. At some point, the sun started bleeding over the horizon, staining the sky a dirty pink. I dragged myself up off the couch, every joint aching like I'd been in a fight. Maybe I had. Maybe surviving her, surviving us, had been a fight that never really ended. I moved around the house on autopilot, picking up the mess she left. A wet footprint here. A smudge of mascara on the doorknob there. Proof she was real, that last night wasn't some whiskey-soaked nightmare. I found her purse tucked by the couch. Still here. Of course it was. Jessica never finished anything she started. Curiosity gnawed at me. I told myself to leave it alone, to toss it onto the porch and forget it ever touched my floor. But my fingers moved on their own, flipping it open. Inside, a cracked phone with dozens of missed calls, none from me. A handful of crumpled receipts, all dated within the last few weeks. A motel keycard. A worn photo of her and Tyler, frozen in a fake smile embrace that looked more like a hostage photo now. At the bottom, a folded letter. Addressed to no one. I opened it. Sloppy handwriting spilled across the page, frantic, desperate. Words like sorry and mistake and regret, repeated over and over until they blurred into nonsense. I crumpled it in my fist without reading the rest. Sorry didn't mean a damn thing 20 years too late. She wasn't looking for forgiveness. She was looking for rescue. Again. And this time, she could drown on her own. By noon, I had made my decision. It wasn't even hard. I threw her purse in the trash, along with everything inside it. I deleted her number from my phone. Blocked it. Erased every trace of her desperate, ugly voice. I wasn't going to call her. I wasn't going to answer if she came back. Jessica had taught me everything I needed to know. That sometimes survival means burning the bridge and salting the earth behind you. The thought of divorce papers came back to me, the first set she had me sign. How easy it had been to scribble my name at the bottom, to let her go. Back then, it felt like giving up. Now, it felt like the smartest damn thing I'd ever done. I wasn't hers anymore. I never would be again. Not even a little. I looked around my small, plain house, the one she had called a dump, and smiled for the first time in what felt like hours. It wasn't much. But it was mine. Built without her. Lived without her. Survived without her. Jessica had lost the right to even step inside it. There was a knock on the door, then sharp, frantic. For a second, my body stiffened, expecting her standing there again, makeup smeared, tears dripping, hands outstretched like a drowning woman grabbing for anything to pull her under with her. But I didn't move. I didn't open it. I just stood there, staring at the door until the knocking stopped, until whoever it was realized no one was coming. Jessica, Tyler, the whole rotted mess of the past, they could pound at the walls of my life all they wanted. I wasn't letting them back in. Not this time. Not ever again. That night, the loneliness hit harder than I expected. It wasn't the kind of loneliness you fix with a drink or a night out. It was deeper, older, the kind that grows roots inside you and waits, patient and cruel. I sat outside on the back steps, a cigarette burning low between my fingers even though I hadn't smoked in years. The cold bit through my jacket. I welcomed it. I thought about all the things I lost. Not just Jessica. The time. The energy. The man I could have been if I hadn't spent years trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. It was a strange kind of grief, mourning a life that never really existed. A marriage built on half-truths and hidden resentments. A future that was always going to crumble no matter how hard I worked to hold it together. I hated her for what she did. But sitting there, staring into the empty dark, I realized something worse. I hated myself more. For being blind. For believing. For loving someone who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone to the next best thing. I dragged the smoke deep into my lungs and let it burn. Maybe I deserved it. Maybe a part of me had always known. Jessica was magnetic, dangerous. The kind of woman you survive, not the kind you build a life with. And yet, back then, I'd handed her the keys to everything without a second thought. I wanted to be her hero. I wanted to be enough. The truth was, I had never even been close. I dropped the cigarette and crushed it under my boot, watching the tiny ember die. There was no fixing the past. No clever line or grand gesture that would make it right. All I could do now was live. Really live. For myself. Not for the woman who laughed when she gutted me. Not for the ghost of the man who thought he could save her. For me. A small part of me, the part that hadn't completely hardened into stone, felt sorry for Jessica. It was a tragic thing, realizing too late that you'd burned down the only bridge that ever led anywhere worth going. But pity was dangerous. Pity was just the first step toward forgiveness. And forgiveness was a door she was never walking through again. Not in this lifetime. I stood up, bone stiff from sitting too long. The stars were out now, sharp and cold in the clear sky. For the first time in 20 years, I made a promise, not to anyone else, but to myself. No more saving people who didn't want to be saved. No more bleeding for people who watched me die and called it ambition. No more Jessica. It was over. Really over. I went back inside, locked the door, and drew the curtains shut. Not out of fear. Out of finality. Jessica was a chapter I'd finally finished. And the man who picked up the pen now was someone stronger. Someone who remembered what it felt like to be whole. I slept that night for the first time in what felt like forever. Deep, dreamless, unbothered. The ghosts of her laughter couldn't reach me here. The claws of regret couldn't find a way in. I had lost a wife, lost a future, lost years. But somehow, in the ashes of it all, I had found something better. I had found myself. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. No nightmares. No cold sweat. Just a strange, unfamiliar stillness. For a moment, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the old weight to settle back onto my chest. The ache. The anger. The loss. It didn't come. There was just silence. Not empty, but clean. A quiet space where pain used to live. I got up, brewed a pot of coffee, and stood by the window watching the first light creep over the fields. It wasn't much. Just a patch of grass, a couple of trees, a dirt road stretching out into nowhere. But it was mine. Every square inch of it built without her. Every corner of this life untouched by her poison. I sipped the coffee, strong and bitter, and thought about what came next. For the first time in years, the future didn't look like a sentence I had to serve. It looked like a blank page. And I wasn't scared to write on it. I started small. I deleted the old email account she had somehow found me through. Opened a new one under a name she would never think to search. Burned the last few letters she had sent over the years, the ones I had kept tucked away in a box, stupidly thinking they meant something. They didn't. They never had. Jessica's love was a transaction. An agreement that only lasted as long as it benefited her. And the moment it didn't, she was gone. With laughter in her mouth and another man's name on her lips. I packed up the old photos too. The ones from when things were good, or at least when I thought they were. Wedding pictures. Vacations. Christmas mornings with fake smiles and eyes that were already looking somewhere else. I drove them to the edge of town and dumped them into a barrel behind a friend's barn. Lit a match. Watch it all burn. The flames roared up fast, greedy and bright, eating away at every false memory, every lie wrapped in a frame. I stood there until there was nothing left but ash. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, or regret, or sadness. I felt clean, light, A man rebuilt from the bones of his own heartbreak. Jessica had tried to find me, sure. But what she didn't understand, what she would never understand, was that the man she left had died the moment she chose Tyler over everything we had built. The man standing here now owed her nothing. Not a conversation. Not forgiveness. Not even hate. Nothing. It was a strange, brutal freedom, knowing you didn't have to carry someone else's sins anymore. Knowing you weren't responsible for saving the drowning girl who tied the anchors around her own ankles. I drove home slow, windows down, letting the cold air slap my face awake. It felt good. It felt like living. When I pulled into the driveway, my neighbor waved from across the road, old Mr. Henderson, who spent most of his days fixing up tractors and talking about the weather like it was personal. I waved back. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to hide. Didn't feel like a failure wearing a mask just to get through the day. I was a man who had been burned to the ground. And somehow, standing here, I realized something simple and hard and beautiful. I had survived. Not just existed. Survived. The ashes Jessica left behind didn't choke me anymore. They fertilized the ground I was going to build something better on. Something real. Something mine. And when the past came knocking again, as it always would, it would find no one home. Only a man who knew better now. A man who knew the difference between love and hunger. Between loyalty and leeching. Between saving and being used. Jessica had taught me those lessons with fire and blood and betrayal. And God help me. I was finally ready to live them. Weeks passed. The kind of weeks that blur together not because nothing happens, but because for once, everything happening feels right. Quiet mornings. Work that filled my hands and kept my mind steady. Nights spent under the stars with no ghost rattling at the windows. Jessica tried once more. A letter slipped under my door one rainy afternoon. No return address. No apology. Just pages and pages of how miserable she was, how lost, how broken. How no one understood her the way I had. How if I just gave her another chance, she could finally be the woman I deserved. I read it once, folded it carefully, and burned it in the kitchen sink. No hesitation. No second thoughts. She had gambled with my heart once. She didn't get to do it twice. I wasn't her second option. I wasn't her safety net. I wasn't her fool anymore. And somehow, letting that letter burn felt even better than walking away the first time. It was the final nail in the coffin of the life she had destroyed. The truth was, I didn't hate Jessica anymore. She wasn't important enough to hate. She was just another mistake I survived. Another scar that taught me how to live smarter, stronger, harder. Some nights, when the wind rattled the windows and the rain tapped at the roof, I thought about her. Not the way she wanted me to. Not with regret or longing. I thought about the lessons. The way she showed me what real strength looked like. Not in holding on. Not in fixing broken things. But in letting them go. Letting them fall apart. And building something better from the ruins. The man Jessica left all those years ago would have welcomed her back. Begged. Believed the lies again. The man standing here now? He knows better. Because some things don't deserve forgiveness. Some people don't deserve a second chance. And some stories end not with revenge or hate or tragedy, but with silence and peace. I spent 7 years supporting Jessica's dreams. I spent 20 years surviving her betrayal. And now? Now I spent my days building a life so good, so solid, so honest, that even the memory of her couldn't survive inside it. If you're reading this, if you ever find yourself sitting across from someone who treats your love like a tool to be used and discarded, let me tell you something. Don't fight for them. Don't beg them to stay. Don't bleed yourself dry trying to fill the holes they carry inside them. Walk away. Sign the papers. Pack your life into the smallest box you can carry. Drive off without looking back. And when they come knocking years later, broken and desperate, don't open the door. Not because you're cruel. Not because you hate them. But because you finally learned. You're worth more than someone else's regrets. You're worth saving for yourself. And that's the only rescue story that ever really matters.